Hi, I'm Jesse Walter, partner with Model Technology Solutions, and in this video, I'm going to give a high-level overview of what Microsoft Cloud App Security is and how you can leverage it to mitigate your company's risk from shadow IT. Let's dig in. So I guess we can begin with what is shadow IT. So shadow IT would be your users spinning up their own cloud apps because they do not care for or understand or know the solutions that you have approved for your environment. A good example of this would be you're trying to implement OneDrive for Business for your organization as a file repository, and your users don't understand how to use OneDrive for Business, but they're very familiar with Dropbox. So instead of leveraging OneDrive for Business, they install Dropbox and start using that tool. Obviously, this goes without saying, but the risk there and the potential loss of data or exposing your private IP publicly goes up exponentially when we're allowing our users to leverage tools that are not approved within the environment. So Microsoft Cloud App Security gives us the capability to identify those applications that are installed, whereas you might not have been able to, understand how often they're being used, and create next steps so that you can either trust these apps or blacklist them completely. So here, if we go into Discover and the Cloud Discovery dashboard, we can see now that we have discovered 219 apps within our environment. Microsoft takes the discovered apps within our environment and cross-references it with 16,000 apps in their catalog that they continuously add to determine what is commonly viewed as a potential risk or identified as a low risk profile. So here you see we have a list of 219 discovered apps, as we saw on the dashboard. And you can access that by clicking the apps as well. And we have a number of filters at the top here. Sanctioned and unsanctioned allow you to identify applications that are either approved in your environment or not approved and what kind of alerts they generate. Additionally, you can filter by the previously determined risk score. I'll slide this down to 2, for example, and we'll see some higher risk applications in our environment. This will allow you to get really deep into apps that are potential threats in your environment and allow you to either sanction those or block them for the time being. I think one of the coolest features here is that if this is a company that identifies that there has been a breach, Microsoft gathers that data and then alerts you. So essentially, you always have somebody keeping their eyes and ears open to determine whether or not there has been an exposed threat for any sort of application that you run in your environment, which is pretty cool. So if I wanted to drill in and see why seedhost.eu is receiving a score of 2, we simply click there, and we can see different categories that Microsoft uses to determine the risk factor. So this gives you an idea of how to better assess where exactly the risks could be in a specific application, giving you a better idea of how to either sanction or unsanction the app. So I can come back up then, and based on the information in my review, I can choose whether to sanction or unsanction the app. I can mark it as monitored, or I can override the app score entirely, add notes for other admins to read, or edit the app details based on my information that I have determined from review. Additionally, we can go in here and edit the app details and use this with conditional access app control, which will give us a more real-time perspective into the usage of this app. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit save. I'm also going to mark this as monitored, and when I do so, we get this prompt: a warning message is displayed to users upon accessing monitored apps. So we'll see who yells at me. But we don't have to wait for them to yell at us. We can click on the link and go into Cloud App Usage here, click on Devices, and we can see which device is being used to access that application. And from there, we can drill into more specific information as to the traffic, user history, IP address history, and get a general idea of what this application is doing in our environment, as well as view the information in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So going back to the dashboard, I can go down to the Discovered Apps widget, and you'll notice that if you hover over, you also have the capability of tagging a specific application as sanctioned or unsanctioned, or you can create a new app discovery policy. So now I can either choose a policy template, or I can create my own new policy from scratch. And what I want to do is just create a policy that monitors any app that I put into the monitored state or tag with monitored. I'm going to mark the severity as medium and put in a description, and then I can add filters. So, for example, the app tag, if it's monitored, with a risk score between 0 and 3. We can apply this to all continuous reports or a continuous report that we define. And what I'd like to do, since we recognize that this app was our highest traffic generator, I want to trigger a policy match for monitored apps with a risk score from 0 to 3, whose daily traffic is greater than, let's say, 5,000 megabytes. We can then create an alert for each matching event within the policy's severity. I would like to send that alert as an email to me for now. And another cool feature is you can send alerts to Power Automate, which allow you to create a playbook that will automate some sort of response, such as creating a blast to a specific team in Microsoft Teams. And finally, you can apply a governance action that tags the application with a sanctioned or unsanctioned or monitored, etc. But since this is a policy that is specific to a monitored app, we will leave that alone, and then we'll create. So now we see our policy has been created here, and we can continue to either edit the policy as we see fit, or view all of the alerts that are generated by this policy. To find out how we can help you mitigate your risk in your environment from shadow IT, please contact us at www.model-technology.com.